So Ian's here with the business then. It's kind of the start of another week when the shuttle diplomacy over the euro crisis, it's all starting up again, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Mercosi, as they call it, get together, really just the start of another very busy month for these European leaders. Of course, we've got that European summit in just a couple of weeks or so. Let's have a look at the markets this Monday morning. Typical Monday blues, really, back to work with that Eurozone crisis heading over many of the markets. Worth noting, though, the Nikkei is closed for a public holiday. So as a result, many of the Asian markets pretty flat, not much trading going on as a result. You can see that the Hang Seng has actually managed to reverse some of the losses it had in the morning session, currently off by about 0.6%. Similar picture, really, for Sydney's ASX, flat again, just off by about 0.1%. The poor old euro again, down against the dollar this Monday, in fact, touching $1.26 at one point. That is another low, another 2-year low for the single currency against the dollar. It's also down against the pound, don't forget. In fact, it's down against pretty much every major currency right now.
Okay, some market hesitancy then over the Sarkozy-Merkel summit. One issue being closely watched by banks and hedge funds will be the Eurozone-wide tax on financial transactions. The billions raised will be used to help fund future bailouts, but critics say the idea risks isolating its biggest fan, France. Here's Karen Creed.
40 years after the idea first originated and Nicolas Sarkozy is determined to implement it. Tobin tax was originally proposed by economist James Tobin in 1972 after concerns that the rapid movement of money across borders was making it difficult for governments to pursue the right monetary policies. The French president is adamant it's the right way to raise revenue in recessionary times.
When you buy an apartment in any part of the world, you pay tax. When you go to the supermarket to buy food, you pay tax. Yet when you make a financial transaction, you don't pay tax. It's unbelievable.
The levy would impose a 0.1% charge on trading shares and bonds. Current proposals mean the tax could generate an estimated 57 billion in revenue for EU governments. ECB Chief Mario Monti has urged France not to move ahead of its EU partners without agreement, while French economists fear it could be detrimental.
The great danger for France today is not only that we find ourselves isolated financially, and to see a flight of money, we don't need that right now. Another danger that we don't highlight, something that's not well perceived, that it could destroy the French finance system.
But Sarkozy remains adamant and is set to step up efforts to push it through at an EU summit later this month. He's threatened to go it alone if the rest of Europe doesn't agree a tax by the end of the year.
Well, as we heard there in that report, the UK has said on more than one occasion it will never sign up to any sort of financial transaction tax. That doesn't mean, though, that the UK government isn't interested in some sort of financial reform. David Cameron, the Prime Minister, put back on the table on Sunday the idea of clamping down on what he calls excessive growth over bonuses. There are various proposals that are likely to find their way possibly onto the statute books later this year. For example, giving shareholders a binding vote over pay. That would give shareholders greater power in deciding within companies what sort of bonuses executives get. But there's no real commitment there for employees to have any sort of representation on pay committees. And it's feared that lots of these proposals, while they sound quite bold, will actually be watered down significantly by the time that they're passed. Nothing, it should be added as well, quite as bold as when the French and British governments got together for a one-off tax on banker bonuses back in 2009. So one to watch, really. Worth noting as well, RBS in the headlines. Once again, the Royal Bank of Scotland, its investment bank arm, its chief executive is on course to get a £4 million bonus this year. That is no doubt likely to trigger a few protests. Remember, RBS is currently 83% owned by the British government after a bailout back in 2008.
Okay, got some other stories.
We should.
Company news.
I almost thought we'd finish there for a second. Let's get a bit more of the day's company news for you now. Olympus is preparing to sue a host of current and former chief executives over their roles in the false accounting scandal. The Japanese camera maker has confirmed it's considering legal action and is understood to be targeting around a dozen senior staff implicated in the cover-up of nearly $2 billion of losses. The firm is already being sued by its former chief executive, Michael Woodford, who blew the whistle on the case. On Friday, he dropped plans for a takeover of the company.
Nokia is pushing its Windows Phone deeper into the US market by announcing a deal with AT&T. Bloomberg sources say the Finnish phone maker will unveil the partnership at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas later this Monday. Nokia is trying to reverse a dramatic reversal of fortune, capped by losing its place as the world's biggest smartphone maker. That's to Samsung at the end of last year.
And the fate of cross-channel ferry operator Sea France is back in the hands of the courts this Monday. A judge in Paris has to decide whether the bankrupt company now has to be liquidated. Plans to turn it into a workers' cooperative using staff redundancy money have stalled as only a third of employees back the idea.
Now, for much of the last 3 years, the US car industry has been on its knees, really, unable to sell in even its own backyard. But times are changing. Detroit's big three, GM, Ford and Chrysler, recorded their best December for years. So they head to their home city auto show Monday with renewed optimism. Ben Barnier has more.
2 years ago, production had stopped at this Chrysler factory. Today, 1,800 workers assembled Jeeps. Production resumed after the US government came to the rescue, and the Italian car maker Fiat took over Chrysler, saving the company from bankruptcy. The average employee here works 60 hours a week, earning more than 5,000 euros a month.
I'm working full-time. I'm not laid off. I'm one of the fortunate. I'm working every day.
In 2011, sales jumped by a third. To keep up with demand, the company plans to hire another 1,000 employees. In recent months, the big three, GM, Chrysler and Ford, have been selling more cars, a growth largely driven by high demand in Asia. As for American customers, many of them have shifted gears towards smaller cars.
We are selling more small cars than we did before, primarily because of fuel economy and gas prices in the United States. However, we have many consumers that still want or need large vehicles and pickup trucks.
Despite a pickup in sales, experts predict the industry will need another 3 years to fully recover from the financial crisis.
So some good numbers coming out of Detroit. We'll be following the Detroit Auto Show. It opens to the media later this Monday. Our correspondent Nathan King will be there telling us about all the latest developments. Look out for Fiat as well. Of course, remember they bought Chrysler, have big plans to turn around that company. So one to watch at the Detroit Auto Show.
I remember that from last year, Nathan. He enjoyed himself, I seem to remember. Now, Owen Fairclough, he has been known very occasionally to go to the pub. It's got some bad news, though, hasn't it?
It has been done, not at this tender hour, I should say. We're what are we, just before 8 a.m. here in Paris. But for those who do want to drown their sorrows with all this financial bad news, well, maybe Ireland is no longer quite the destination with its famous pubs, and of course it's Guinness. That's because of 5,000 pubs are due to close their doors for good during 2012. That's on top of around 1,000 pubs that went to the wall during the height of their economic crisis. The usual kind of reasons, as you'd expect, the whole financial crisis, but also a 2% increase in VAT is driving many customers who would normally enjoy a drink down at the pub to actually go to the supermarket to buy cheaper alcohol there.
Excellent. Is that an admission you're down the pub at 10 a.m. then, once you've finished?
I was about to say that's been known too, but I shouldn't really admit to that one.
All right, Owen, thanks very much. Yeah, we do occasionally, not very often. All right, thanks very much, mate. A lot more coming up, of course, after the break. Claire will have the headlines then.
After 9 years of occupation, the last American soldiers have left Iraq, leaving a nation torn apart. Between Sunnis and Shiites, Iraq's fate now lies in their hands. And our reporters met them. With the resurgence of militias, the spectre of a sectarian war looms. Iraq in crisis, tomorrow, 1:40 p.m. Paris time, on France 24.
Gabon loves challenge. Gabon loves nature. Gabon loves action. Gabon loves progress. Gabon, Africa's emerging choice. Join us. Be a fan of Gabon.